Hello and welcome to this special broadcast from the Mycenaean Broadcasting Corporation. Today begins what some are already calling the trial of the ages, as Achilles, the well-renowned hero of the Trojan War, is facing perhaps his most daunting challenge. The hero of the Achaeans, Achilles, son of Peleus, is facing a charge of cowardice, an accusation brought against him for his conduct during the Trojan War. He will answer the charge before the court of popular opinion. The Mycenaean Broadcasting Corporation has full and exclusive access to the court proceedings and will keep you up to date with all developments. Before we go to the court, where the trial will shortly begin, I have with me Osbert Twaddle, Professor of Classics at Nonsuch University. Professor Twaddle, what can you tell us about the background to this trial?
As you quite rightly said, this case is attracting a lot of attention. Achilles is the well-known, well-respected character from Homer's Iliad. He is considered by many people, not just here in the West, but all over the world, as the archetypal hero, perhaps one of the first, if not the first, great hero of Western literature. The Iliad is perhaps the oldest surviving example of ancient Greek literature, over 2,500 years old, and is considered by some scholars to be the foundation upon which the entire canon of Western literature is.
I have to interrupt you there, Professor, as proceedings are about to begin.
Be seated. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, all persons having business before his lordship. Draw near and give your attention, for the court is now in session. The case to be presented before Judge Lord Tyburn is Antipathy versus Achilles.
I am Marcus Grime. If it pleases your lordship, I shall conduct the prosecution.
I am Anthony Dancer. If it pleases your lordship, I shall represent the defendant.
I have received a number of pre-trial applications, and these are my rulings. Firstly, sources of information concerning the actions of characters involved in this case shall be restricted to authors from the ancient Greek to the classical Roman. Homer, Ovid, Virgil and Apollodorus are examples of those authors that are acceptable. I would caution the jury to dismiss any influence from later sources, especially those gleaned from cinema. Secondly, evidence will be accepted only from characters who are directly involved. Authors will not be called to give evidence. Thirdly, I will not accept the testimony of divine characters, gods, nymphs, spectres and other ethereal entities. Testimony will be restricted to human witnesses. Lastly, as this is the court of popular opinion, it is the people themselves who will give verdict in this case. I will not, therefore, tolerate any attempt to sway popular opinion with rumour, innuendo, or hearsay. Clerk of the court, you may proceed.
Bring forward the accused. You are Achilles, son of Peleus?
I am he.
Achilles, son of Peleus. You are charged that you did, in Book 1 of the Iliad, show cowardice to the enemy by absenting yourself from duty, failing to obey a lawful order, and endangering the life of a fellow combatant, namely Patroclus, son of Meniotius, leading directly to his unwarranted death. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Be seated.
Mr. Grime.
My lord, the case that is brought before this court is as follows. Homer, in Book 1 of the Iliad, states that Achilles, having challenged the authority of Agamemnon, the marshal of the Achaeans at Troy, sulked in his tent during an enemy attack and refused to engage with that enemy, even though he knew that such absence would result in the loss of many Achaean warriors. Further, when reports of the havoc and mayhem that the Trojan forces wreaked upon his Achaean comrades reached him cowering in his hiding place, rather than face the enemy himself, he ordered his charioteer Patroclus to enter the battle wearing his Achilles' armour, an order which led directly to the death of Patroclus. It is the contention of this prosecution that Achilles was motivated by fear, that he allowed his fear to influence his behaviour, which is the very definition of cowardice. With your lordship's permission, I shall call my first witness, Agamemnon.
State your oath.
I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence that I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Agamemnon, son of Atreus?
I am he.
You were king of Mycenae, were you not?
I was.
And you were the marshal of the Achaean forces during the Trojan War.
Indeed, I was.
And was Achilles and his Myrmidons a part of that force?
Yes. Achilles bought 50 ships, approximately 2,500 warriors.
I understand that the war, up to the moment of Achilles' rebellion, had already raged for nearly 10 years.
My lord, I must object. There is not, nor has there ever been, any suggestion that the defendant rebelled against Agamemnon. The charge clearly accuses the defendant of failure to obey an order, and not that he rebelled against a military authority, which is a different matter altogether. I respectfully request that such innuendo be stricken from these proceedings.
Objection sustained. Mr. Grime, I have already stated that innuendo will not be tolerated in my court. I will brook no further disregard of my instructions. Proceed.
King Agamemnon, before the incident in question, how long had the war been fought?
9 years.
And how would you describe Achilles' behaviour up until that time?
Achilles had proved himself a formidable warrior. He was the scourge of the Trojan forces, and his enthusiasm to join battle was pivotal in checking any tactical advantage that the Trojans, sought to exploit.
Enthusiastic, you say?
Indeed, he was. He was an inspiration to us all. I cannot think of any who would not have followed him in a battle. Up until then, the incident in question, I had no reason to suppose that he could be capable of cowardice.
And yet he refused to fight at a critical moment in the campaign. Do you have any idea as to why he would crack, I beg your pardon, my lord, I should say hesitate
in bearing arms against the foe.
The occasion for his refusal to fight was a dispute over the custody of a woman taken as a war prize. I was required to give up custody of my prize, a woman called Chryses. I felt that to give her up was a slight against my authority, and as Achilles was insistent that I should give her up, I insisted that I should take possession of his prize, the woman Chryses.
So, this was nothing more than a dispute over a woman?
Indeed, just that.
Was she special in some way, this woman? Did she possess some extraordinary power, some aspect that made her exceptional? Or was she simply the usual female prize that is the, how shall I put it, comfort of the troops abroad?
She was beautiful, but as most women who cut by sneakers tend to be on the better looking ones, she was not exceptional.
What did Achilles do after you took possession of this woman?
He wandered alone far along the beach where, I heard, he cried.
What did Achilles do when next there was an engagement with the Trojans?
He remained at his camp by the ships.
What was the nature of that engagement?
I led a major assault on the city of Troy.
Did Achilles participate in this assault?
No, he did not.
Was the assault a success?
The assault did not breach the walls of Troy, but we established a strong forward defensive line which gave us a positional advantage in relation to Trojan manoeuvrability.
In your opinion, could the assault have succeeded with the contribution of Achilles?
Objection, my lord. Speculation.
Sustained. Mr. Grime, you are an experienced advocate of the law. I believe you well know the unadvisedness of inviting speculation from a witness. Desist.
Yes, my lord.
Proceed.
Did you try to persuade Achilles to rejoin the fight?
Yes.
What incentive did you offer him?
I offered gold, treasure, and a woman known as Chryses.
And what was Achilles' response?
He refused to return to arms.
Did Achilles return to arms at a later time?
He did, but only after the death of Patroclus, son of Menelaus.
Thank you, Agamemnon. I have no further questions. My learned colleague may wish to question you further.
Mr. Dancer.
King Agamemnon, just a couple of matters I do not quite understand. You stated that Achilles brought 50 ships, about 2,500 men-at-arms, to the war. Presumably he arrived in year 9, 8, perhaps?
He came to the muster at Aeolus.
Aeolus? He mustered with fleet at Aeolus? He had fought for the Achaean cause for a full 9 years?
As we all had.
As indeed he should, as one who had sworn to hold up the marriage choice of Helen.
He did not so swear.
Had he not? Why not? Was he not a suitor?
No, he was not. He was far too young.
He was a volunteer.
Yeah, I suppose so.
You suppose so. Either he was a volunteer or he was not. Which was he?
He was a volunteer.
He was not under any compulsion, no obligation to be there. He could have returned to his home any time he wished.
I told him he could return to his home. I told him to go, but he remained to sulk in his tent. If he had returned, Patroclus, son of Menelaus,
would not have been killed.
But he stayed?
Yes, he stayed.
Thank you, Agamemnon. No further questions.
Mr. Grime,
If it pleases your lordship, I would like to call my next witness Odysseus, son of Laertes.
State your oath.
I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Odysseus, son of Laertes?
I am he, King of Ithaca, and
You were, I understand, a combatant at Troy, a warrior leader.
that is correct. I led a contingent from Ithaca of 12 ships, approximately 600 men-at-arms. Many of the men under my command.
You were involved from the beginning, mustering at Achilles?
Yes, I had arrived at the port.
You were there because of your oath to support the marriage choice of Helen.
Yes, although I must point out that I was already married to Penelope by the time Helen made her choice. So my oath to support her was more, how should I put it, symbolic. I had been a suitor, but because I married...
Yes, thank you, Odysseus. I understand that you are a friend of both Agamemnon and Menelaus, and that you acted as an envoy, an ambassador to the court of Priam at Troy in negotiations concerning the return of Helen.
That is correct. On 2 occasions I travelled to Troy. The first time as the representative of Menelaus, the second time in company with...
Odysseus, your reputation as an orator is well established. This is, however, a court of law, not a debating society. Keep your answers concise.
Yes, my lord.
Odysseus, you were present when Achilles declared his intention to withdraw from combat?
I was.
What was the reason that Achilles gave for his withdrawal from combat?
The seizure of Briseis by Agamemnon.
This woman, Briseis, was she special in some way?
I understand that he won her as a prize after killing her husband. Objection, my lord. Odysseus was not present at the occasion when Achilles and Briseis met. Any statement made by this witness concerning this matter is hearsay.
Indeed it is. Mr. Grime, I have already had occasion to remind you of my ruling concerning hearsay. Do not continue to try my patience.
My lord, I seek to establish the nature of the relationship between Achilles and Briseis. Whilst the previous witness, Agamemnon, stated that Briseis was a war prize, his statement too was hearsay. I am concerned that this error, being overlooked by my learned colleague, and passing unremarked, might jeopardize the integrity of this evidence. I seek to establish the fact for the benefit of the court.
Mr. Grime, you are an experienced lawyer. You can establish facts without resorting to hearsay. Desist from this course and proceed according to the rule of evidence.
Very good, my lord. Odysseus, did Achilles ever state, in your presence, the nature of his relationship with Briseis?
After Briseis had been taken away on the instructions of Agamemnon, Achilles, in my presence, referred to her as his wife.
His wife? Is it usual for a warrior who has won a woman as a war prize to refer to her as his wife?
Objection. Opinion is all that the witness can give in response to this question.
Overruled. Mr. Dancer, the question invites the witness to give account from his experience, regardless of his relationship with the academic aspects of the subject. The witness may answer the question.
In my opinion, it is unusual.
Odysseus, I am confused as to the nature of the relationship between Achilles and Briseis. Did Briseis ever state in your presence the circumstances pertaining as to how she and Achilles met?
She did.
And what did she say concerning their meeting?
She stated that when Achilles sacked the city of Lyrnessos, he killed her husband and her brothers, and took her as a prize. She further stated that Patroclus, son of Meniotius, told her that he, Patroclus, would ensure that she would be taken to Achilles' home at Phthia, where he would marry her.
She stated that she would be married to Achilles after the conclusion of hostilities at Troy?
Yes.
Where is Lyrnessos located?
Close to Mount Ida.
Why did Achilles sack the town?
To prevent the town supplying Troy.
This town, Lyrnessos, was it involved directly in the war?
It was not.
It was a town of non-combatants, a town of civilians as far as the war with Troy was concerned.
The king, Lysandros, was of the warrior class, as was his sons. It could not be said that they were civilians.
Was Briseis' husband a warrior?
Yes.
Was Briseis a warrior?
Of course not.
Yet Achilles took her as a prize.
Yes, he did.
And he raped her.
I'm not sure one can call it rape. This is how Achaean warriors conduct themselves.
Attacking a town that is not directly involved in the war, killing a woman's husband, then taking her as a prize for the benefit of sex is a war crime. Briseis did not have a choice in all this. Will you accept that Briseis was the victim of rape?
Objection. My lord, we are not here to try Achilles for war crimes. We are here to examine the charge as laid.
My lord, I seek to establish as fact that the reason which Achilles stated for his withdrawal from hostilities was false, that he was not concerned about Briseis, and that she was nothing more to him than a sexual plaything upon whom he forced his attentions. He deliberately became embroiled in an argument as to who could rape an innocent bystander who was caught up in a conflict of which she played no part, solely as an excuse to avoid further participation in hostilities.
Mr. Grime, your opportunity for speech-making will come at the appropriate time. Refrain from such remarks. As to my ruling on the objection from Mr. Dancer, it is this. Whilst I am willing to accept evidence concerning the nature of the relationship between Achilles and Briseis, I must caution you, Mr. Grime, not to involve subjects that do not relate directly with the charge as laid. Proceed, Mr. Grime, but with caution.
Very good, my lord. Odysseus, when Agamemnon took possession of Briseis, were they, as far as you know, married?
No.
Yet Achilles referred to Briseis as his wife.
He did.
So Achilles lied?
Well...
Was Achilles lying?
I suppose it could be...
Did Achilles lie when he stated that he and Briseis were married? Yes or no?
Yes.
What else did Achilles lie about?
I don't know.
When the call to arms came, how did Achilles respond? Did he respond enthusiastically, or did he shirk his responsibility?
I was informed that he was not at his home at Phthia, but rather that he was on the island of Skyros.
Doing what?
I found him living among the daughters of King Lycomedes.
Living among them as in dressed as a woman?
Yes.
Are you associated with a warrior by the name of Neoptolemus?
Yes.
Who is his mother?
Didamia, a daughter of Lycomedes.
Who is the father of Neoptolemus?
Achilles.
So, Achilles, whilst dressed as a woman and hiding among the daughters of Lycomedes, had an affair with Didamia, with whom he fathered a child?
Yes, correct.
When it was time for Achilles to leave Skyros, did he make any statement concerning his future intentions towards Didamia?
Achilles swore that he loved her and that he would return after the war and marry her.
Let us return for a moment to the dispute concerning Briseis. When Achilles refused to accept Agamemnon's offer to return Briseis, did he have, how shall I put it, a romantic attachment to another woman?
He did, a woman named Diomede.
Was this relationship with Diomede continuing actively during this period?
On the occasion of my embassy to Achilles, when he refused to accept Agamemnon's offer to return Briseis, I stayed the night in Achilles' tent. It was obvious to all us guests that he, Achilles, was enjoying the affections of Diomede.
He had sex with Diomede after refusing to take back Briseis,
Yes.
whilst continuing to refuse to return to combat?
Yes.
How did Achilles meet this woman, Diomede?
She was a prize taken during a raid on Lesbos.
Another rape victim.
Yes.
Given these extraordinary circumstances with this multitude of women, could Achilles have lied about the reason for his quitting the war? Could Achilles have lied about his reasons for quitting the war? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you, Odysseus. I have no further questions. My learned colleague may wish to cross-examine you further.
Mr. Dancer.
My lord, Odysseus, you stated that, in your opinion, Achilles lied about his relationship with Briseis. Well, yes, I did. In your experience, is it usual for warriors, such as Achilles, to lie? No. In my experience, truth is of paramount importance to a warrior. You stated earlier that you swore the oath to support the choice of Helen. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. And as a warrior of noble birth, the king of Ithaca, you were willing to fulfill the oath? I was. I beg your pardon, Odysseus. I didn't quite hear your answer. Yes, I was willing to fulfill my oath. So, when news reached you that Agamemnon and Menelaus were mustering an army at Aulis, you did not hesitate to recruit a force of men at arms and join the expedition to Troy. You were aware, were you not, that Helen had been abducted by Paris, son of Priam, and that the support of the Achaeans would be required as per the oath? You hesitate, Odysseus. Did you not state earlier in your testimony that you went in company with Menelaus to Troy to petition King Priam to release Helen back to her husband? Is that not so?
Yes, that is correct.
What did you do when the request for military support reached you? Speak up, Odysseus. What did you do?
I pretended to be mad.
You pretended to be mad? Why?
I was concerned that the war with Troy would be long, risky, and ultimately a waste of human life.
Especially your life?
I wasn't thinking of myself. I was thinking of all the warriors and men-at-arms who would die because of this war.
How noble of you. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a warrior king, is not war the occupation in which you thrive?
Yes.
Yet you pretended madness in order to avoid participation.
Yes.
Then you lied when you pretended to be mad.
It was an act.
But a lie all the same?
Yes.
Thank you, Odysseus. I have no further questions.
Mr. Grime.
If it pleases my lord, I call my next witness Antilochus, son of Nestor.
State your oath.
I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Antilochus, son of Nestor?
I am he.
Were you present when Patroclus, son of Meniotius, was killed?
I was.
What did you do in relation to his death?
I did not witness the death of Patroclus, but was informed of it by Menelaus, son of Atreus. He instructed me to go to the camp of Achilles and inform him that Patroclus had been killed by Hector, son of Priam.
When you informed Achilles of the death of Patroclus, how did Achilles react?
Achilles was enveloped by sorrow. He poured dirt over his head, wailed loudly, then threw himself onto the ground. He screamed and moaned and tore his hair. I was afraid that he would take out his knife and cut his own throat, so I seized his hands to prevent him from doing so.
What happened next?
The women came from his tent and joined the wailing. Achilles remained on the ground, muttering words as if he was talking to someone who was not there.
Could you identify to whom he was speaking?
It sounded as if he were speaking to his mother.
Could you make out what he was saying?
He was saying that he would not return to the fray until he had fresh armour.
Armour? He wanted fresh armour?
His friend Patroclus was lying dead on the field, stripped of his, or should I say, Achilles' armour. Achilles wailed and moaned and muttered an imaginary conversation with, I presumed, his mother. I heard him name her. Then he got to his feet and set off for the place in the battle lines where Patroclus lay. I followed him, and I saw him standing before the Trojans, shouting at them.
Did he attack the Trojans?
No, he didn't need to. The Trojans, seeing him alive and standing there shouting with rage, fell back in panic.
Some Trojans were trampled by panicking chariots, and the body of Patroclus was abandoned.
Was the body of Patroclus retrieved?
Yes, he was placed on a bier and taken back to the camp.
Achilles went back with the body.
Yes, the sun was setting. The Trojans had fallen back, so fighting could not resume until the next morning.
Thank you, Antilochus. No further questions. My learned colleague may wish to question you further.
Mr. Dancer.
Thank you, Antilochus, for your testimony. I appreciate the emotional nature of the testimony that you have just given to the court, and I would not seek to distress you further. I have only one question. In your opinion, was Achilles sincere in his grief?
I believe that he was.
Thank you, Antilochus. I have no further questions.
Mr. Grime.
If it pleases your lordship, I will call my next witness, Meriones, son of Molus.
State your oath.
I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Meriones, son of Molus?
I am he.
I understand that you assisted in the funeral rites of Patroclus. Is that correct?
That is correct. I organised a party to gather firewood for the funeral pyre.
Were you present at the cremation of Patroclus?
I was.
Who else was cremated on that pyre?
Objection. My lord, the funeral rites of Patroclus are not connected with the charge in question. My learned colleague seeks to distract the jury from the purpose of this hearing and confound them with superfluous details.
You have raised an interesting point, Mr. Dancer, and now I am curious to know the nature of this detail. I will allow the question. Mr. Grime.
My lord, Meriones, you may answer the question. Who else was cremated on the pyre alongside Patroclus?
Achilles had taken as prisoners 12 young Trojan men. Their hands were bound with twine. Achilles cut their throats and had them laid around the edges of the pyre, and their bodies were consumed in the fire.
Prisoners, you say? Bound prisoners? Young men?
Yes.
Could they have struggled? Could they have escaped? Were they a threat to the lives of any who were present?
My lord, I must protest. This line of questioning is but an attempt on behalf of my learned colleague to blacken the reputation of the defendant. I must object to this shameful tactic.
It is for me to decide whether this is a shameful tactic or not, Mr. Dancer. I allow the question, and I will consider the answer. Your objection is overruled. Proceed, Mr. Grime.
My lord, Meriones, answer the question.
They could not struggle nor escape. They were of no danger to anyone present.
Then their death was sheer murder.
My lord,
Enough, both of you. Mr. Grime, you have overreached yourself. We are not here to consider crimes beyond that which are part of the formal charge. Meriones, you are not obliged to answer the question.
No further questions, my lord.
Mr. Dancer.
my lord, I have no questions for this witness, and respectfully request that his testimony be disregarded as being not only unrelated to the charge, but is likely to prejudice public opinion, and therefore the verdict.
Your objection is noted, Mr. Dancer. The genie is now out of the bottle, as the saying goes, and the damage has been done. I shall give my consideration to your objection and give my ruling in my final summary.
My lord, that concludes the case for the prosecution.
The court will adjourn, and when next convened will hear the case for the defence.
All rise.
An extraordinary first session here at the Court of Popular Opinion. Testimony from Agamemnon, the marshal of the Achaean forces, and from Odysseus, the well-known character whose return journey to his home in Ithaca is the subject of the Odyssey, and from Antilochus, son of Nestor, who is of less renown than the other witnesses, but who has provided some interesting, perhaps critical evidence. With me, listening to the evidence, is Professor Twaddle, a senior lecturer at Nonsuch University. Professor Twaddle, my first question to you concerns the source of the evidence that has been provided by the prosecution. Is the evidence authentic, inasmuch as the basis for it coming from ancient Greek and Roman sources?
At the very beginning of today's hearing, the judge, Lord Tyburn, insisted that only evidence that can be sourced to ancient Greek and Roman writings would be accepted, and so far this has been the case.
Many people, I believe, would be surprised, shocked even, that such a charge could be brought against Achilles. In your opinion, why would this be so?
Achilles is a popular figure, not only of literature, but of popular culture throughout the ages. He was known as a popular hero throughout the classical period, as well as during the Middle Ages, when his exploits were the subject of poetry and song. His reputation enjoyed revival during the Renaissance, and with the coming of the printing press and the expansion of literacy throughout Europe, remained the renowned hero. He was also represented in theatre and opera, especially during the 18th century, with the coming of the modern era, with inventions of technologies that provided mass entertainment, especially cinema, has maintained his position as the epitome of heroism. As to your question, I think that we academics are perhaps least capable of giving an objective answer. We examine the language and decipher meaning in relationship to interpretation. Perhaps we are so close to the actual writing that we lose sight of the greater meaning. All that has been stated in the prosecution is there in the legend of Achilles and the Trojan War, but hearing the evidence as presented by the prosecution, it has made me re-examine at least some aspects of the story.
Well, it has been an interesting session, this case for the prosecution, and we still have the case for the defence to look forward to. We will return to the Court of Popular Opinion when the court resumes, and I hope that you, the listener, will join us again when the defence presents its case.